Hi guys, today I'm finally back with something that I have been wanting to talk about for the longest time, literally like a month. But I finally got some social life, so it got in the way. But maybe I had some time to process it and think about it better. So, first of all, just a small announcement. I have gotten my coaching certification. So now I am a full-blown coach and I have my own clients, and it's literally the best thing that has ever happened to me. And I will make a separate video about it at some point, but I just wanted to say that I'm super grateful for the things that led up to this event, and I love it, love it all the way. And the thing that I wanted to talk about is actually inspired by almost any and every one of my clients, because I see it as a recurrent theme, not only in my own personal history, but just throughout everyone. And I think that everyone can benefit from this video. So, I want to talk about our self worth and how we can create a healthy base for ourselves to have healthier and more fulfilling lives. So, what I notice is that, of course, a lot of people don't have a very good base of self worth, which usually goes down to our childhoods, of course, and some other things that have been happening to us throughout our lives. But to me, I think a lot of people would define it differently. But for me, basically, self worth is the ability to put your long term well being above everything else. And that includes above your desires in the moment sometimes. It can take very many different forms, but just so that you know, I will list some of the things that I look for in other people and in myself that can be like a telltale signs of that you might need to work on your self-worth, because it can penetrate almost all of the areas in our lives. So of course, first and foremost, if you have like a bad relationship with yourself, if you talk shit to yourself when you see yourself in the mirror and so on, like obviously I'm not talking about this obvious stuff, but of course if that is happening, that is of course a sign that you need to work on that. But I have a list here, so I will just read a little bit from it. The first and foremost, I think it's the relationships, and of course the relationship with ourselves is the most important one that we will ever have, and it is a basis, the foundation for all of the other relationships in our lives. But in general, like with your relationship and social life, if for example you put other people's feelings, plans, time, whatever, like in general other people above yourself, and you think that you're not as important as the rest, and you sacrifice your time, energy, well-being, whatever it is, money sometimes even, to help other people or to be with other people, or whatever it is. It can be to reach the approval, to get the relationship, to not get the person angry, to avoid conflict, whatever it is. If you find yourself doing that, that can be a sign that something is not going very right, or that your priorities are not straight. Also, if, for example, every time that your friends invite you to go out, even if you have other plans, you still go out because you don't want to say no. So, the inability to say no in general. And for example, doing something that you're not comfortable with just because other people ask you to, or helping people when you don't have time to help yourself, or you have a shit ton of stuff to do on your own, but you still choose to help other people. It can be even emotional help. It's not necessarily like going to another person's place to help them move the furniture. It can be just like listening to other people when you don't have the energy to yourself, and not being able to establish boundaries altogether. Next one, I wrote down money. And this is a very, very tricky one, because a lot of the people have a very weird relationship with money. But I can see like two different extremes in this case. So, first, it's the inability to spend money on yourself, or just spending money on like other people, and not being able to manage your money altogether. Because to me, like money and self-worth, worth in general, are very connected. It's just, well, I mean, worth, like it's the word that we use to describe the price or the worth of something. and money is a form of energy, and the way that we are with our money, we are with a lot of other things. So I think that the way that you are with your money about yourself tells a lot about your relationship with yourself in general. So okay, on one extreme we have the extreme saving and not spending any money on yourself, not buying anything for yourself, even the small things that you want, because you either just are not able to want things that actually happens, or because you think that you're not worth it, or because you want to save for later and you constantly just kind of negate yourself any wishes that you have. Or the second option can be extreme spending. So for example, you don't have anything to pay your apartment with, but you still go and buy some shoes that you cannot afford with your credit card, and then you're in trouble, and then you have to lend money from your friends and so on. So basically, like an interrupted flow of money that you either spend more than you can afford, or you cannot set long-term goals. For example, you want to save this amount of money and you are not able to do that because you randomly spend it on stuff that you don't always even need, or it's extreme saving and not spending any money on anything pleasant for yourself whatsoever. The next one is food. It is really kind of also related to me. So like it's still the form of energy that we invest in ourselves. So it can show up as a restrictive diet or just restricted eating, setting yourself some goals like weight goals or food goals, or restricting certain groups of products, like for the sake of reaching a goal that is set like from an outside standard. So for me, there is a big difference between restricting some groups of products because you know that they're not good for you and doing it in from a place of self-love, and your body knows, like if you crave something and you just suppress it, your body will know, and that will eventually lead to overeating, or like eating some junk food that was in the forbidden category for you, and so on. So if it goes in highs and lows, and the restriction is followed by some out of control behavior, for me this is like an emergency signal that something is not going right. So restriction altogether, or feeling guilt after you have eaten, or feeling guilt after you have eaten something that you didn't want to eat, or the quantity of the food that you have eaten. So it can take a lot of different forms as well, but in general, the relationship with your food and with your money, I think, are very much linked also to kind of your relationship with your mother in a way. So I would look into that if I were you. And the last one that I wrote here is work. So I would say that if you are at a place that doesn't pay you enough, or if you work over hours and you're not being recognized or reimbursed for that, if you cannot put boundaries in your work, like you answer emails at 10 in the afternoon, right when you wake up, or you have like unlimited working hours, and it's not like a temporary thing. So for example, I don't know, like you're in the end of the project and for a week you have to work like 12 hours a day. Okay, sometimes it's necessary, but even in that case, in my books, well, I mean, something is going wrong. So like you haven't planned it well enough that this is happening. But if it continuously happens, like it is for me also like it's a bell that just says that something is wrong. Because or if you are at a workplace where you're constantly being disrespected, or you're not being reimbursed financially for the amount of work that you're putting in, if you're staying at jobs that you know that people who work in the same areas are getting much more money for much less work, and stuff like that, so you're not able to negotiate your reimbursement, you're not able to negotiate your worth with other people, that is also one of the signs. So okay, that was all kind of just how to know if something is off in my relationship with my self-worth. And now I would like to talk a little bit about the steps that one can take in order to make it better. I always say that it is difficult to like fix yourself on your own, because there is only this much that you can do. It's very nice to have like advice on the internet. It's very nice to listen to people who tell you how to solve your problems. But unless you have like a sounding board, like you have a person who can, well, talk to you personally and see what limitations that you have inside of you. And sometimes you can recognize yourself like in some of the things that I'm saying, but unless there is someone to pinpoint like the exact thought patterns or like word patterns that you use and say, you may not even be aware of a problem. So I really recommend you to find a facilitator. It can not necessarily, it doesn't necessarily have to be like a psychologist or a psychiatrist. It can be like a coach, a counselor, a shrink, an astrologer, whatever. Like just a person who has some sort of qualification, who can listen to you and who can reflect you back your thoughts and your words so that you become more aware of it. And of course, who can guide you through the process, because sometimes we need someone to take us by the hand and get us there. But yeah, so the things that you could do on your own is to like sit down and realize what makes you use this behavior. So let's take the behavior of a person who cannot say no to their friends. For example, their friends invite them somewhere and they want to put time in work, or they want to save money but they cannot say no, so they go there and they spend the time and the money that they don't have, to not disappoint people that they see as their close circle. There can be, basically you can separate it in two groups of reasons. So either you're avoiding something or you are trying to earn something. So you are trying to like get something. And in this case, you need to sit down and be very honest with yourself and think like, what am I trying to avoid, if there is anything I'm trying to avoid. And for example, if it's rejection or judgment or being excluded or feeling less than, you can think back in your life to the other situations where you felt the same way, and you can see a pattern in your life, a repeating pattern where you have felt the same way, and trace it back to where it started. For example, it will give you an idea, but then of course you can just rationalize with yourself. And for example, if you are avoiding rejection or being ridiculed or being judged by your friends, you can either talk to them. They will, for example, tell you like, no, of course not. Of course, like it's fine if you miss a couple of times, or we understand that you need to save money. Maybe you can find a compromise that would be good for everyone. So you can just kind of talk to people, face your fears, and most of the time, like disclaimer, nothing happens. Nothing bad happens, so there is not even anything to avoid. And if the people that you consider your friends will offend themselves for something as stupid as that, then maybe you should reconsider. Just saying. And the other thing is that you're striving for something. So a lot of the times we do things because we think that as we are not enough, and we need to do certain things to deserve love. So there probably there is like an internal belief or some kind of like a skewed value system where it says that I need to be a certain way in order to be loved. And usually that comes from your childhood, when you understood from what your parents transmitted to you that you need to be, well, like basically you need to be a certain way in order to receive love from them. Not necessarily on purpose, but just could happen. In that case, you need to understand, and you need to kind of teach yourself to believe that you deserve love as you are. There is a huge bee on my window. To deserve love as you are, and to just be okay with some people not understanding some things. So if you are feeling like you're not good enough, or that you're not worthy of love the way that you already are, that is something also to work on. And basically, if you dig deeper and you think of what you were trying to achieve in the first place, like love is a very generic thing. But for example, like I want to feel valued, or I want to feel important. You can just think of how you would like to receive that. And when you understand that, you can try to think of ways that you could do it to yourself. So you could think of ways of making yourself feel this way, because in the end, no one can make you feel full if you don't feel full on yourself. If you have like a hole of a size of like a self-respect or self-love or something, like you will walk through life with this hole and no one will ever be able to fill it. And you know the saying that like no one will love you until you love yourself. It's not that like no one will love you. People can love you and people can give you all these things, but if you're not used to feeling like this inside of yourself, you will just not recognize it. If you're not used to feeling peace in your relationships, you will not recognize and participate in relationships that feel peaceful, because for you it will be something out of your comfort zone, or something so unusual that you just wouldn't know what to do with it, and you would want to avoid it, and you would want something familiar. So you need to familiarize yourself with the ways that you want to feel, and then you will automatically attract like situations, people, and circumstances in your life where you feel like this, because you will just recognize this now, and you just will not be able to recognize the good things unless you normalize them inside of yourself. So I think that if you pay attention to what you spend your money, time, energy on, and start giving some of it to yourself. And I have heard so many people like say in sessions with me that I haven't even thought of like doing this to myself. So they want to do things for other people, but they didn't even consider doing it to themselves. And it's such a common thing that I just wanted to like put it out there, because I think it's not selfish in any way. It's, if you are self-sufficient and if you fulfill your own needs and don't expect for other people to do that, I think like you're already doing a lot for this world, because you are making the lives around you so much better, and that like a ripple effect makes the world better in general. All right, guys, I hope that you found this video helpful. I will come back with more eventually. And I hope that you're doing great, that you're being kind to yourself and the rest. In case you are interested in my facilitation, coaching, and so on, I will leave some links down below. You can contact me. Yeah, love you. See you next time.